statement from Rava, where Rava says like this. Just 1 second. Just have to quote it from inside. Rava tells us in the Gemara, Haiman, this person, the Oiger Agori, the Davla, one hired workers to draw water and irrigate his field. And that's how they used to water the field. He brought workers, he hired workers. Then suddenly, Va'asa Mitra, and then before the workers came, it rained. So now the workers come and say, you should pay us for the full year because you brought us down to work for the full day, for the full day's job. We get paid $100 a day, $50 a day, whatever it is. And they now demand their pay because they were ready to work. He says, listen, folks, I don't need you anymore. It rained. I need you to bring water from the river. But now that it rained, I don't need you anymore. So what is the halacha here? The halacha here is, the Gemara tells us, pseida de poyalim. It is the loss of the workers. It is the loss of the workers. In other words, again, one who brought down workers to work, it rained out. Rava tells us that we does not need the workers anymore. So if he does not need the workers anymore, it is now the loss of the workers. The Gemara continues and tells us, Asa Nahara, if the river swelled, the river flowed up, Pseida de Balabais, it is the loss of the employer. And he pays them, though pays them like a poil batal. I'll say now in brief what a poil batal is, and later we will discuss, maybe we'll discuss a little bit more. A poil batal basically means like this, that he has to pay them their full salary, but tells them, listen, you actually didn't have to schlep. So for you to get paid without schlepping is not so, you would do this, you would stay home for less money. In other words, let me just explain that. Let's say someone comes and he works a certain, gets, let's say $10 an hour. I'm just throwing the number, $10 an hour. And I tell him, if you stay home and don't do anything, I'll pay you $8 an hour. Would you agree to it? So he says, okay, the $2 that goes for working so hard. I mean, today people probably say the other way, I'll pay just to get out of the house. But then someone says, okay, take me $2 less and I'll stay home. That's poil batal, meaning to say he gets his salary, just gets a slightly lower salary because he did not have to leave the house. So here again, Rava tells us, if the rain comes and irrigates the field, the worker does not get paid. If, however, the river swelled up, then the worker gets paid. In both situations, the field did not need to be watered anymore, did not need to be irrigated. Then the Gemara tells us a further incident. The Gemara tells us a further ruling. Va'amar Rava. And Rava tells us, Haiman da Dava, this person who hired workers to irrigate a field. Upasak nahara bepalga deyama. And the river stopped halfway at midday. The river stopped halfway at midday. If the river stopped and the workers did not know, and the owner did not know either that the river was prone to stop. If this river is not prone to stop, then the halacha is pseida de poilim. It is the loss of the workers. Avad de pasak. However, if the river does usually stop from time to time, then if the workers are residents of that place, b'nei masa, then they should have known, they could have expected it, and it's their loss. Pseida de poilim. La b'nei nasa, if they're not from the city, they're not residents of this town, pseida de balabais, it is the loss of the employer because he was supposed to know. This piece of Talmud, this piece of Gemara has a lot of discussion of Rishonim, Chronim. What exactly is the implication? What exactly is the Havana of this situation? Why, when the rain came, does the owner not have to pay the workers? However, when the river swelled up, he does have to. Why, when the workers were from the town, then they do not get paid when the river stopped? However, if they're not from the town, they do get paid. One of the primary ways of explaining this sugya is like this: that what basically happened here is a einus. An einus means something which one did not, unexpectedly, one did not know was going to happen. If an einus, something which was not, one was not expecting to happen, that is what happened here. Now, the halacha learns off this in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat Siman Shin Lamed Daled, learns off the sugya like this: that when something happened which obstructed the work, we look, our perspective, our way of looking at it is like this: was this something which one of the sides could have known about? If this was something which no one was supposed to know, when no one was supposed to make a precondition about it, no one expected it, and therefore no one was supposed to make a precondition about it, then the halacha is that what's called hamaiti mechavere olav haraya. The one who wants to get paid, he has to prove that the other side knew about this. On the other hand, the one who is holding the money, he keeps the money in hand. Meaning to say, what happened over here was something which was totally not expected. Totally, no one could have fathomed that this was going to happen. If this was something which no one could have fathomed could happen, so the workers come to the Baal Bayis and they tell them, you have to pay us. The owner, the employer. The employer says, 1 second, something which was unexpected happened, and I had no knowledge about it. Something which which unexpected happened, I had no knowledge about it. So therefore, he turns to them and he tells them, I do not have to pay you. I'm not going to pay you because I had no knowledge and I had no way to previously know about it. Therefore, and then there's the tinus go back and forth. And the halacha is that if the workers want the Baal Bayis, the employer, to pay them, they need to prove that he knew about it. And if he did not know about it, he is not liable to pay. They cannot force him to pay. So that explains to us why when it suddenly rained, the employer does not need to pay. However, when the situation comes where the river is swelled up, that is something which the employer was supposed to know about. That's something which happens in his field from time to time. And if it was something which happens from time to time, the worker said, we made up with you to start working. We started to work for you. And now all of a sudden something like this happened. We started to work for you. You should have made a precondition. You did not make a precondition, and you obviously knew about it. You have to pay. That also explains to us the next piece of the Gemara. The next piece of the Gemara, which I mentioned previously, was that if the river stopped, so again, if it's something which usually does not happen, if it's something which usually does not happen, then the owner, the employer, is not responsible. If it's something which sometimes happens, then we said if the workers are local, they also should have known about it, and they do not bear responsibility. They do bear responsibility. If they were not local, they had no reason to know about it, and the owner, the employer, he is the one who bears responsibility. That is the base of the Gemara. Based on this Gemara comes the halacha in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat Siman Shin Lamed Daled 334, which that is the base for many of these halachas. That again, this point comes it comes to la halacha l'maisa, that any situation where either the worker, the employer did not know, or both sides did know about it, the employer does not need to pay. And we say, hamaitzi mechavere Alav haraya, the one who wants to get paid, he has to prove that the other side knew about it, and if not, he will not will if not, he does not get paid. So writes the Shulchan Aruch, so writes the Rama. In this halacha, which again, the point is that I just want to make me medayik on one point here, is that because we are not sure who should have made the condition, who should have made the t'nai, who should have made the condition that in any situation I will be responsible to pay, or you will be responsible to pay me, or any situation I will not need to pay. Therefore, and that's because we do not know who should have made this condition. We do not know who should have made this condition. Therefore, the one who has to pay is pater, does not need to pay. Let's take this a step further. Let's put this today, for example, in I'm not sure how it works by you, but over here in Eretz Yisrael, for example, many people pay with pay up front if you pay up at the beginning of the year, or people pay with checks in advance. They pay a check, give to the school, to the school program, to the class, to whatever they planned on doing. They pay 12 checks in the end for the beginning of the year for the whole year. Or I mean, I'll bring it like personal. One of my daughters goes to a singing class in the afternoons once a week. So she paid in the beginning of the year the fee per month. We gave 12 checks in it, or 10 checks in advance. Over here, who has the money at hand? Who is holding the money? Who is the one which we call according to halacha is muchzak? Because we said again, hamoitzi mechaverei alav haraya. The one who wants to take it out from the other one, he has to prove. Now, who is one taking it out? Now, if one went ahead at the beginning of the year and paid upfront, then the whole halacha changes, because then the worker, the one who's providing the service, the worker already got paid, and now because they cannot provide the service, the employer, the parent of the child, the person, they are the one who is trying to take out the money, get their money back. They're trying to get their money back. Then that falls into then the muchzak, the one who's holding the money, is the worker. If they're trying to get their money back, then we will say, 1 second, you're not able to take your money back because he is muchzak, and you were the one who should have made the condition. Again, let me just clarify this. I hope this is clear. The halacha is that the one who is holding the money, he keeps the money in his pocket in these things, which an unforeseen inus. Now, when the money is in his, that's usually the situation is that one did not pay. But if one paid in advance, then the halacha will be otherwise. No, if one paid in advance, then the worker, he's the muchzak, and you want to take the money out away from him, you need to prove that he should have made a condition. And if you do not prove that, you will not be able to take back the money from the worker. So in many of our situations, when one paid in advance, that's it, the money is paid. Now, however, although we're putting this point that the money is that the muchzak is the worker because he paid in advance, what will be the halacha when he paid with a check? Now, halachically, a check there are many, like everything, there is much machlokes, much discussion. What is the halachic ramification of a check? And this definitely makes a difference of the country and the manner of how the checks are used in that country. Now, in many places, what a check is doesn't mean much halachically, because what is a check? A check is a message to the bank to release this money on this day. So if it's only a message to the bank to release this money on this day, a check is not a shtar amana. I mean, the question was described as a shtar amana. Shtar amana means just a document which doesn't have halachic meaning. Here, there is halachic meaning. This is a directive to the bank, pay so-and-so this amount of money on this day. It's like making the bank a shaliach to pay so-and-so this amount of money on this day. So even if I gave someone checks in advance, if I understand a check to mean in such a manner, I gave a check in advance. So I made this bank my messenger to pay someone X amount of money on this day, but I have the ability to back out. I could always cancel my shliach. I can always cancel my messenger. Yet, that is one take of looking at a check. I do not know how it is in South Africa. In Eretz Yisrael, the discussion is more because over here, there's a few different kinds of checks. There's actually, recently it switched a little bit, but especially when I moved here, it was much more common that a check was sort of like, had a lot of value. In other words, you got a check, you were able to take the check, even though it was on your name, and give it to the grocery store, and the grocery store you can still do that today actually, and the grocery store can deposit it in their account. In other words, that check is like sort of like a monetary value because it's sort of on the market. Therefore, because it has a monetary value, some poskim in Eretz Yisrael hold that one who receives a check, that turns him into be the muhzak. He's like as he already received the money in advance. However, I'm just bringing this up. I see that in South Africa, it's less common this way. Also in America, it's also not like this. Now, I just want to finish the check. I got to electronic transfers in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, however, one of the dayanim, which I frequently sides with him. The rule is that even a check is not considered muhzak. And definitely in South Africa, if I understand it, that's like the cash advance, cash electronic payments, that is not considered muhzak. Why? Because you just like you set up the payment, you go up to the bank, you go up to your computer, your cell phone, and you press X and you cancel the payment. If you were able to within a second cancel the payment with no fee, with no responsibility, then the other side did not get something, although you plan to pay them, you set up to pay them, but if they did not actually get money to them before, they're not muhzak. Even though you told them you'd pay them, you promised you'd pay them, you said you'd pay them, but by the end of the day, the money is still in your possession. When will there be discussion if the money is not in your possession? That is, and the other side is muhzak. That is only when you have a fee, when you have a knas, when it's forbidden for you to cancel it. But if you're legally allowed to cancel it, then definitely the money is considered the one who was supposed to pay and not in the hands of the one who received it, because he has yet to receive it. Now, I'd like to just bring a slight discussion which is close to this before we get to a very important point on this discussion of our whole discussion, which that is the halacha the halacha tells us, you have it in Siman Shin Lamed Daled, Siman Shin Yud Beis, which that is someone who rented an apartment, someone who rented a store, and they, God forbid, Rahman al-Islan, they passed away halfway through the year. They have a 12-month lease. After 6 months, they passed away. The question is there a responsibility of the children, Yarshim to continue paying from what his money which is left to pay the rent for the next 6 years, 6 months. Is there a responsibility? How do I look at this rental agreement? Again, something unfathomed. They did not plan. Obviously, it's an inus. No one planned Chas v'Shalom to leave this world. 12 months rent. 6 months is not. After 6 months, he's not here anymore. Is there a responsibility? Is there an achrayus to pay for the full 12 months? Now, obviously, if there was money left. So this is again falls into the same discussion, the same halachic discussion which we were having until now. Something not planned happened, and does one have to pay or not? So over here on this discussion, the halacha is, it depends if one paid in advance or not. If one paid for the 12 months in advance, then even though something unpredictable happened, again, there's no way we can take back, halachically, we're not able to take back the money. If one was yet to pay, then we are not able to actually collect the money for the next remaining six months. Again, similar to the same idea. There's much more depth and discussion in this halacha, but I'm giving the base of the halacha. Now, when someone has your credit card details, this question is coming up again. Credit card details does not make the recipient a muhzak. Why does it not make the recipient a muhzak? Because, at least as far as I know, I'm able to cancel my credit card. If I'm able to cancel my credit card, even if someone has my credit card details, that does not make them muhzak. Just because they have my credit card details does not make them muhzak. Now, so because again, I just cancel it. They did not actually collect the money yet. Now, in the Gemara in Mesachas Bava Metzia, Daf Kuf Hey, there is again another discussion, which there is brings a whole new light to our whole discussion until now, which that is something which is called Makas Medina. When the tragedy which happened was not something which happened to one person, which was something which happened to a calamity all around the country, to everyone. Or over there, the discussion is, just to keep we're going to keep it a little brief now, but if grasshoppers came and ate all the fields, and someone rented the field, took the field for work, and he was supposed to pay back, let's say, a certain percentage of what it's supposed to pay, a certain amount of rent for using the field for the year, and now grasshoppers came and ate all the produce, and when the grasshoppers the grasshoppers came and ate all the produce. So here, all of a sudden, when the grasshoppers came and ate all the produce, so the Gemara brings in that it could be that the halacha is different. And here also, the owner of the field, not only the renter of the field, the owner of the field needs to bear responsibility as well, as is a Makas Medina. Meaning to say, let's translate in other words, which is very prevalent to our current situation, when something which happened, which the calamity is not only this personal person's problem. Over here, it's global. It's all over the world. What did we say before? That one person died, one person got ill, it rained in one person's piece of land. These are all personal issues. So over here, we said, okay, you have bad luck and that's it. But if it's global, it's everyone's bad luck. It's everyone's bad mazel. Everyone has to put in a little bit of the, let's say, put in a little bit of the brunt over here, because it's a global calamity. That is called Makas Medina. Makas Medina Makas Medina, which is discussed in Choshen Mishpat, Siman Shin Chav Aleph, Siman Shin Chav Beis. There's also in Choshen Mishpat, in Gemara, Baba Metzia, Daf Kuf Hey, Kuf Vav. They discussed the many details of it. Now we're going to go to the base idea of the Makas Medina, as time is permitted, what time permits. When it's a Makas Medina, the general consensus of the halacha is that everyone has to bear responsibility. Now, in this discussion of Makas Medina, like everything in halacha, we have a three-way machlokes. One opinion holds that all the loss goes instead of on the worker, the loss goes on the employer. Let's put this over here. Let's say we discussed the opening question of the shir was about school payments, but this is just an idea. The whole loss will be on the parents. That's one approach of the sugya of Makas Medina. A second approach of sugya of Makas Medina, that when it's a global loss, the approach of the Sma is that yachloiku, that it's split. You split the loss. The third approach, which that is connected to other Rishonim and Achronim, that no, the Gra and other Achronim, that over here it's the same thing. That the loss is a loss on the worker and not on the employer. So in other words, let's just translate it and say with the school or program. Is it that the parents have the whole loss? Is it that the school has the whole loss? Or does the loss cross through the line 50-50? These are three halachic approaches of how to understand the din of Makas Medina. Theoretically speaking, we could put over here the notion of what we mentioned before. You want me to pay? Makas Medina, I don't need to pay. You already paid? Makas Medina, I'm not going to pay you back. It's a general calamity. That would be the general idea. Now, there is a tshuva of the Chassam Sofer. The tshuva of the Chassam Sofer has much bearing in practical halacha today as well. Tshuva of the Chassam Sofer, in his time, there was a calamity, a war or some sort, and the Chassam Sofer writes in his tshuva like this, that he himself paid all his workers, paid all the people which he had to pay. No, he did not say, okay, I don't have to pay. No, he paid everyone which he had to pay. Yet, he said for everyone else that the idea is that there should be a pshara, there should be a compromise set up in Makas Medina how much to pay. And the idea which the Chassam Sofer gives in that tshuva is that the compromise, if I'm not mistaken, it should be at 50% of the original fee. That is the tshuva of the Chassam Sofer, which has a lot of bearing, and the halachic discussion of the current situation is definitely, this tshuva of the Chassam Sofer is definitely going to come up a lot. Now, however, there's one of the greatest paskei halacha in Choshen Mishpat is the Nesivos HaMishpat. Nesivos HaMishpat is one of the greatest halachic authorities. He is written on the side on the bottom of the Shulchan Aruch, and his decisions, his explanations are accepted in halacha lemaisa by the dayanim today. Many follow the psakim of the Nesivos HaMishpat. It's known, just there's the K'tzais HaChoshen and the Nesivos HaMishpat, two commentaries of the Shulchan Aruch. In the worlds of yeshivas, in the yeshivish world, the K'tzais is the one who all the Rosh Yeshivas bring him and explain him and argue and discuss him. Though in the world of the dayanim, the Nesivos HaMishpat, he is the one who has more prevalence of the actual halacha l'maisa. The Nesivos HaMishpat in Siman Shin Lamed Daled, chapter 394, he discusses this whole issue of Makas Medina and the payment, and he brings down the Mordechai, which I mentioned him previously, which the Mordechai discusses the situation Mordechai is actually in Shin Chaf Aleph, which the Mordechai discusses the situation of where tragedy happened, and the Mordechai Maram brings from the Maram al Melamed Shegazer Hamoshel Shelo Yilmud. There was a decree that there should not be chadarim, that there should not be yeshivas, and the Melamed because the decree of the government that there could not be learning, there could not be yeshivas. So now he says so what the question is, does he get paid or not? Because it's as a decree, the government decreed no more Torah study. And the Maram, which quoting the Mordechai, he says that, like we mentioned before, it's Makas Medina, and therefore the whole loss is on the Balabayis. In other words, the parent is the one who has to pay. Like I mentioned before, the three sides for this discussion. The Nesivas HaMishpat, he does not take, he in halacha follows that Makas Medina, the whole loss is not on the Balabayis, is not on the parent, the whole loss is not on the employer, the whole loss is on the worker. Yet, he still agrees with this psak of the Mordechai. He still agrees with this halachic decision that when it's a case of learning, the Balabayis has to pay, the Balabayis, the parent has to pay. And how does he explain this? How does this counter with other situations of loss? And here's an interesting point, which he says, which this again, I saw some of the questions which were posted, and this is just a halachic yesod. And obviously, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of this year, I am not coming to give a halachic decision in your particular situations. I'm giving the background of this sugya. The Nesivas HaMishpat says, it's something very interesting. 1 second. Why do you pay a melamed? Why do you pay a Torah school? You do not pay them for teaching Torah, because you're not allowed to pay for learning Torah. The actual teaching Torah is supposed to be for free. Hashem taught us the Torah for free. We teach others the Torah for free. So if so, why are you paying? You're paying them for schar shimur. You're paying them to babysit, to watch the children. He says, okay, in that situation, what happened? What did the government say? No teaching Torah. You could still teach ABC, you can teach algebra, you can teach other things. So the Melamed comes and says, I'm still here. I can still babysit. You want a babysitter? The babysitter is still here. I am still available to babysit. And therefore, you have to pay me because the reason that you hired me to be a babysitter, I am also here to be a babysitter. And therefore you have to pay me. And the Nesivas HaMishpat brings an example. He brings an example. There's another halacha in Chayshim Mishpat. Rachmana litzlan, someone was very ill, and they sent someone to bring medicine or some other needs to keep him well. Sent him to bring it, and by the time he came, the guy died. So the guy says, "Okay, you went for no reason." He said, "What do you want? You sent me to bring it. I brought it. Does it have to do with the fact that he's alive or dead? That's a side point. I did what I was supposed to do." So too, he says the teacher here can say, "I did here what I was supposed to do. I was available to do what I was able to do." That's how the Nesivas explains why, by the teaching situation, everyone would agree that because he's still there to be available to do what he was set to do originally, he does need to get paid because he's still there to do what he was supposed to do originally. Based on this idea, they discussed actually with one of the great Dayanim Eretz Yisrael, which is that if a school is still providing, let's say, studies online. I mean, I don't know how it's by you, but I know by me, when 2 weeks before Pesach, the studies online, it wasn't really the greatest success with my children. But if a school is providing studies online, then they are still providing 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 something. It's not like, okay, fine, they're it's over, and they're not giving anything, and it's going back to the base halacha of Makas Medina. When the school is still providing services, teaching, over here it's the other way around. The babysitting they're not providing, but they're providing the teichen. So the teichen, the classes which they're providing, is definitely something which originally you hired them to do, and they're still available to do it. Just they're doing it in a different format. But the actual thing which they're doing is still available to be, it's still available to be done. So when schools are teaching, giving online courses like the way it's in Eretz Yisrael, then they definitely have the ability to say, okay, I'm still teaching. It's a little bit of a different format, but based on this idea of the nesivos, you have to now pay us for continuing to teach in such a manner. Obviously, in such a manner of teaching, the price probably is a different price. It's probably you can receive a discount because the school does not have to pay for maintenance, doesn't have to pay for renting, for electricity, for all those things are not which I usually pay for school fees are included in it, and those things are not being paid now. But for the general idea of the teaching, that does exist, which that's something which they can demand payment for. Again, this is the basic idea of what's going through the Rabbanim and the Dayanim's mind when it comes to a psak halacha on this situation, which the discussion again is going to go through. Was the situation something which was preempted, what we could have thought about before? Was the money paid in advance? Was the money not paid in advance? If the money was paid in advance, how was it paid in advance? Was it like a checks, or was it cash, credit card already swiped? Like a credit card, is it something which can be canceled or not canceled? That makes it who is the muhsik, and based on who is the muhsik, can you back out or not? The idea which the Chassam Sofer said, when it's a Makas Medina, to make a pshara, and probably about 50%, is also something which is going to go through the idea of the Rabbanim and Dayanim, which are dealing on this situation. And then again, this idea of the Nesivos HaMishpat, which is that if the work is still available in a different manner, that is also something which is going to go through the idea of the mind of the Dayanim. Now, and then there's also other things, like many times, obviously there's many other, when Rabbanim Dayanim discussing this, making many times, let's say, okay, fine, so you're gonna, let's say it comes to a school or a moisted, when everyone knows that, okay, you're not gonna pay, so then the school's going to close down, and then you won't have a school the year afterwards. And that's also something which is not wanted. That's something which is more of a general perspective of a thought, which needs to be looked into in each particular situation. Now, this idea again could be at a school, could be at a regular little singing class, or a dancing ballet class for a child, or many. I don't know how it's big, but many here it's babysitters for young children. Again, which are set up for the year, and again for these few months, these babysitters are not available. I mean, people don't bring their children anymore. So again, do you back out? Do you not back out? Did you pay in advance? Did you not pay in advance? And I'll just give an interesting point, which is the shot came to me twice that about babysitter payments, which was that even if one will go to the decision that after Pesach, they did not have to pay. They don't have to pay because they said I did not pay yet and I did not pay in advance, etc. Still, Pesach vacation, one is obligated to pay, because Pesach vacation is really for the whole year, and for the whole year they worked, so they get the Pesach vacation. So the money which is there for the Pesach vacation, in any case, one will have to pay, because that's not a new month. That is part of what that was really part of the work agreement for the whole year. And also summer vacation will also probably need to be paid in percentage wise versus how much they worked for the whole year. The summer vacation, they're also entitled to summer vacation. These are just additional small tidbits on this point. But the general idea of this, of the general idea over here is that there is discussion of our discussion over here is not a discussion which started today. It's a discussion which is going on in the Gemara and Halacha thousands of years. And if you go through the Poskim, there are many interesting situations and stories of decrees. Like even just I saw a decree which happened in Yerushalayim that the guy came and he said all around about 300 years ago, all around Har HaBayis, there could be no Jews living. He expelled all the Jews. And again came a whole discussion. Who do they have to pay rent or not have to pay rent once they were expelled? This discussion is going through Am Yisrael for hundreds, thousands of years, and this discussion is relevant to today as well. Like this time, I'd like to wish for Shlema, the Chayei Yisrael, that everyone should have it for Shlema, and we should be married the coming of Mashiach very soon, speedily today, Meitz Hashem.
Big Yasher Koach, Rabbi Raskin. Thank you very, very much. Okay. Not sure if there's any individuals who still wanted to submit any questions. I think quite a few came through while Rabbi Raskin was giving the shir. If there are any others and you want to send them through briefly via the chat. I think one question that's coming through here was the point that you mentioned about with regards to school discounting their fees. That if the costing of the school, if the cost that the school incurs is lesser than what it does throughout the year, then the tuition charges remain the same as well.
Again, as I mentioned before, that I cannot get into a particular situation. Now, many times, I will just say how, theoretically speaking, because teaching online costs less than teaching bring teachers and people into the school as well. And that would be a proper taina that you can pay less because of that reason. On the other hand, a school could probably taina, I'm just going to the back of a mind, it can't be dayanim, but a school can probably taina, what we charge is much less than what it costs us bichlal. Usually we have donors who cover it, and we do not have those donors due to the situation. Therefore, we're due to the current situation. Therefore, we're in losses in any case. That could be the counter taina of which a school would have.
Right.
Teaching online have a lot more competition, but there's definitely something special with what's it called? I think something special with teaching in your class. I mean, I did say something negative before, maybe about the online teaching, how I saw it, at least by me the last few weeks. But I did see that hour a day when my child did get on, was excited for her to see her classmates and everything. That definitely has also an effect. Now, the question just came up about Meiser money. I would not get into length of Meiser money, but I would like to make an important thing that Meiser money for school fees today, the Meiser money, the breakdown of Meiser money is like this. Number one, for girls schooling, one is allowed to pay with Meiser money. Number two, for boys schooling, for the part of teaching Torah, one cannot pay for Meiser money, but the babysitting, the limudei chol, one is allowed to pay for with Meiser money once a child is over 6 years old. That is a very rough general ruling. That's a general ruling of Meiser money. So in today's situation where the child is not learning and the money is really just going to keep up the school, that definitely can be paid for Meiser money, the way I understand the question.
And there was a question about a payment plan. I'm not sure if you noticed that.
Not noticed.
Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste another two questions that came through on the question platform. Just 1 second.
And that question is already going into the depth of the sugya of Kofei. I'm not getting to that right now. And there is a difference between Aris and this. There is a difference, but is muchzik? And the question is if muchzik is negay if you're making a pshara. Well, the one who's muchzik is for sure yadir yaina. Now, if we're going, it's still yet to see. But if there's going to be a general call, I mean, say in Eretz Yisrael, for example, of all the Rabbanim and Dayanim, I know that, let's say, different Batei Dinim are working on an idea of that the pshara should be 30%, 35%. Then that will just 40%, 50%, whatever it is, that will cut through everything. That's going to be the rule. And if there's no pshara, then the base halacha is going to be muchzak. But what probably will happen is that the Dayanim are going to set up a certain ruling that this should be the pshara following the idea of the Chassam Sofer. This is going to be based on the Dayanim of different kehilas. That's what probably will happen, that the pshara should be this amount. And then that will override muchzak. Right.
I believe that's it in terms of the questions.
Okay.
Once again, a big yasher koach, a guten moed, and Psuras Tovas.
Psuras Tovas.
Big yasher koach, Kol tov.